So hi, I want to thank everybody for coming today. Why don't we go around first and you can introduce yourselves and tell me where you're going to school and what year you are and what you've been doing in the Precast Studio. Why don't we start with you, Sarah?
Okay, sure. So my name is Sarah Wagner. I'm a fourth-year undergraduate student at Clemson University. This semester, we're in a studio with Professor Carlos, specifically focusing on performance morphologies or precast performance morphologies. So, thus far, we've done a lot of research on and projects pertaining to performative morphologies and advanced tessellations, and this idea of using parametric and morphing shapes and how this can translate into design and architectural design specifically. So it's been very interesting, and I think I've definitely learned a lot. I think that like having this knowledge about precast concrete, and I didn't really know the extent of it, of this material before this studio, and so I think that it can really give me that advantage of and prior knowledge to essentially benefit me in the future in the career. So.
Hi, Sai. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're doing?
Sure, yeah. So I'm actually a graduate student here in my final year. I did my bachelor's back in India. It's also in architecture. We are all in the same studio doing the same thing basically. So yeah, we started doing this precast morphologies in this fall semester. And as part of that, we studied a lot of precast, like a lot of details about the precast, how the molds are made, how the time can be saved using the precast. These all things we have learned. Yeah, so that's it.
Good. And Matt?
All right. I'm Matt Poet. I'm also a fourth-year undergrad, like Sarah, at Clemson University. Like Sai said, we're all in the same studio, the morphology studio with Carlos. I think Sarah and Sai said it best about what we're doing in the morphology studio as far as geometric design, parametric design. I agree with both of them, though. I think it's been really interesting. It's been really informative as far as looking at geometric principles that relate to design and how that applies to using precast concrete. So that's been really cool to see.
Have you guys found precast to be a pretty versatile product to work with in the studio?
I would say for me, surprisingly so, because before this studio, and something that I was really interested in why I took this studio was the idea of looking at a design, whether it's a building or otherwise, and looking at something that's seemingly very complex and having that ability to break it down and say, okay, what's really happening here? And we've really taken that as far as geometric design goes and looked at, say, advanced tessellations and said, okay, this looks seemingly very complicated, but what's actually happening here? And along the way, we've interwoven the knowledge about precast. And beforehand, I didn't really think of concrete in, a design sense. It was like, okay, if I need a structure, maybe I'll use concrete. And it wasn't a material that we had really looked at in past studios. And so for this one, it was really interesting. A lot of the projects we're looking at, some of the things that they're able to do as far as form finding, and also its ability to manipulate other materials aesthetically, something we actually looked at in a lecture yesterday, or I'm sorry, on Wednesday. So that's been really cool for me.
Mm-hmm. Sarah and Sai, have you found the same thing, or Sarah?
Yeah, I definitely agree with Matt. I've definitely found that this material can ultimately change or be versatile in many different ways, with aesthetics and how like the building can become more efficient, specifically in the time that it is constructed. I think it can speed up that process, and I've found that very interesting in learning that through the studio as well. And I think it's very cool and how it's becoming like a more widely used material nowadays, and just like seeing that. And I think that's helped us a lot as well.
What about you, Sai? Has anything about the versatility been interesting for you?
Yeah, it's very interesting for me because actually I came from a country where we use concrete so much, but we don't use precast concrete so much. But like, yeah, they use ready mix concrete. They use machines to side. They mix the concrete ready mix there, and that's what they usually do there. But yeah, precast is like in a initial stage there, and yeah. So and when studying these things like the precast concrete, what it can do, especially like exactly like what Matt said in our previous presentation on Wednesday, we had a precaster basically. He actually used to compare the timeline used for the precasting and the building things. So that was very exciting for us because I'm actually taking one more course which is called IPD. It's like project delivery method. They actually teach us how time can actually save us money and all, and like in like from a projects like around which are costing around $300 million. Even 1 month of time, like a like if we are ahead of schedule of 1 month, it can save around $1 million for them. That's what we studied in that course. I thought, like the precast has that potential of saving time and saving money for both, but for all the teams basically, like for everyone. Yeah. So then, yeah, that I believe that precast has a very good potential to do in the future. Yeah.
Great. I also wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about how this semester has been for you during the pandemic. And are you learning all virtually, or is it a hybrid? Or Sarah, what are you guys doing? Are you coming into the school at all, or is it mostly virtual?
So for me, and obviously for our studio, I'm not sure about their other classes, but for me, I've completely been online. That isn't what we were all hoping for this semester. I know for Matt and I being our final year in undergrad, it is a little disappointing. Lee Hall on Clemson's campus kind of became our second home our first year in architecture. It was a place that a very open space where we were all able to work together and bounce ideas off each other. And it's really strange not being there this semester. We've had to completely change and be online and doing class over Zoom, doing studio over Zoom I think is challenging, but it has given and provided us a lot, some opportunity to do other things as well. Carlos has been awesome in that sense that he's provided us other ways to learn this semester, having different people from the field like Peter Fenton and Mo Wright to come and give us lectures on precast concrete specifically, and how this material is used in architecture right now. And so I think that even though we have had this challenge of being online, there have definitely been some benefits to it. But yeah, it's been a weird semester, not something that, we were hoping for, but I think we have to adapt. And I think that's something that we've learned to do a lot this semester and can help us in the future.
One of the things I was just reading yesterday was that studies are finding that students are actually working better in groups online than they are in a traditional learning setting. Have you found that to be true, Sai? Is it easier to work in groups online than it is in person?
I would definitely agree with that. Like, yeah, that's for sure. Because whenever we are trying to meet, it's like in seconds. We just message our group in a group. We'll say that we're going to meet in 5 minutes, and there we are, and we are starting to work there. So yeah, it's as Sarah said, yeah, we are missing the Lee Hall and the department and campus. The atmosphere what we have there. Kind of sometimes feel bored down in the same room like for the whole semester. But there are positives and negatives for that. Yeah, like I personally sometimes go to Lee Hall and the department because I actually have position there. I work there, so I have to go at least twice a week. So whenever I go there, I cherish the moments because I can see the greens. I can walk there. I can feel the cool breeze, and I'm happy. And I can sit outside and I can actually have a good phone call or can relax there. Yeah, and we are actually missing that. But the collaboration is like, yeah, I can say that for the collaboration, online meetings are being, I think, good. Yeah, I think so.
I also wanted to just finish up by talking about the second project that I sat in on. And
yeah, so this was a really interesting project. So all semester leading up to that point, it has been more, studying the concepts, learning about the material, learning about different geometries. And we never really said, okay, here's a site, here's a program, design something, right? This was the first time we got to do that and got to bring all of that different knowledge together. So it was a really interesting project. Our group, we did that the Mobius strip, that ever morphing wall that created those two separate spaces, a gathering space and then one for like the food stand area. For us with Precast, so we decided to take that wall and see how we could use tessellations and geometry, the principles that we had learned so far, to apply that to Precast and then apply that to our building form. So we tried to come up with a way that we could use geometric design and freestanding structures to, create kind of an unorthodox building or space. So using like the concept of molds and different molds. I think Sai mentioned earlier, talking about the economy of it all, something that we really haven't thought about in past studios. We thought, okay, if we're going to make this building out of, say there's 200 tiles or 200 pieces to this wall here, something that we really had to think about was, okay, are we going to make 200 molds? Because that's not very economical, right? Let's see if we can try to cut that down to, something closer to like 50, 40, something like that. So it was a really interesting project. And this was the first time we got to apply all of those principles, all of those ideas that we had learned in the past to something more, no pun intended, concrete.
We did the arches, basically the tiger tail kind of thing.
Okay.
This goes on several arches, like 8 arches. So we tried to make a hangout space, basically a simple hangout space with panels. Like what our plan is to make an arch out of flat panels with having some interlockings in between them. So yeah, so we just did it. Yeah, as Matt said, we wanted that to be very economical. So I actually have my 3D prints with me. So these are the kind of panels that we tried to make, and we want to assemble them so to make an arch. So yeah.
And then Sarah, what did your group do?
We designed a pavilion structure that was made up of a series of these panels as well, out of this Y-shaped tile that essentially created more of a hexagon, but had these void spaces in between, and a series of 3 different layers of this. Learning how these tiles can interlock with each other, and just deciding on how big these panels can be. I think Matt kind of touched on that, and how important it is to think about not making just like these small tiles that you're going to have to replicate hundreds of times, but rather make these larger panels that are easier to make, and make it lower cost and lower time to eventually put together on site.
Anything to end up with you guys want to share about your experience so far? You're only, 2/3 of the way through the semester. Any surprises that you've been delighted by with Precast? Anything that's been especially fun? Anything you're hoping to learn by the end of the semester?
I've definitely enjoyed this studio this far. I think it's an interesting way to look at Precast by starting with these morphologies and using tessellations to kind of apply to Precast concrete, to this material. I'm looking forward to this final project that we're doing in collaboration with Skidmore, Owings and Merrill. I think it's going to challenge us in a way, and think about this on an even larger scale. The project that we did before obviously was very small, but this next one is going to be much, much larger. So I think that's going to help us in a way think about the way that precast can be versatile in that way and help us in our designs as well. So it's definitely been a fun semester so far. So I'm looking forward to the next half of it and seeing where we can take our designs.
How about you, Matt? Any final thoughts?
Yeah. Well, I think Sarah said it best as far as I've really enjoyed Studio so far, and I'm really excited to, we're in kind of the home stretch. We just introduced our final project. I'm really excited because, the last project we did, like Sarah said, it was more on a smaller scale, but it was the first time that we really got to apply all of those ideas and things that we had learned throughout the semester. And at least for my group specifically, we took a lot of that feedback from that, shorter project. And we said, okay, there's a lot that we need to work on. And there's a lot that we still don't understand about precast and about structural geometries and a lot of these things that we now want to apply on a much larger scale for this final project. So I'm really excited to push that forward, and also something more specific as far as the aesthetics of precast, which is something that we started to look at last week. I've looked quite a bit for studio projects and also for work projects, different building materials and their different applications, not only structurally, but also aesthetically. And something that we started to look at last week, on Wednesday, was, that aesthetic quality of precast and its ability to manipulate other materials while also being a very durable material in its own right. So those are all principles that I'm really looking forward to pushing for this much larger scale project. And hopefully this can be the best one yet.
And Sai, any final thoughts?
Yeah, like they both covered almost everything. Yeah, so yeah, we are very excited for this project actually. Yeah, let's hope, everything's going to be good.
Well, thank you guys for spending a few minutes with me talking about your studio experience. I hope that some of you can join us at the PCI convention. It's going to be in New Orleans, and the time just changed. It was going to be in February. Now it's going to be in May, so it's probably going to be after you're done with school. But we do usually invite the studio students to come to the PCI convention. And we also have something called Project Precast, which is a design competition where students design a precast project in 2 days and have a chance to win $1,000 prize. So it's kind of a fun time too. So I hope you'll think about doing those things. So thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's been awesome talking to you, and we definitely look forward to it. Hopefully that kind of falls after our graduation or
yeah, it's the 17th through the 21st, I think, is so before you start work and after graduation, I hope.
Yes.
Great.
Looking forward to it.
All right. Well, thanks very much, guys.